campaigning from court and doing nothing else really, did an interesting statement recently, and I just kind of wanted to go over this. He's talking about abortion, and Trump says abortion not that big of an issue. Uh, GOP is party of fertilization, so basically saying I don't know exactly what he's saying. We'll watch some of this because this is just bizarre to me. Um,
My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. Many states will be different. Many will have a different number of weeks, or some will have more conservative than others, and that's what they will be.
The number of weeks now, people are agreeing on 15, and I'm thinking in terms of that, and it'll come out to something that's very reasonable. But people are really, even hardliners are agreeing, seems to be 15 weeks, seems to be a number that people are agreeing at. But I'll make that.
So, yeah, it looks like he's gotten pretty far right here on the abortion thing. Yeah, I don't doubt that he'd sign a 15-week ban. I don't doubt he'd sign a total ban if that's what they want him to do. I don't think he's got a personal position on it other than what he thinks is most expedient for him or what's going to help him out the most. This is very dangerous, though, because even if it's with the position we're at now, where it's a state thing, where women have rights in certain states and they don't have in other states. You have the right to have an abortion in certain states, and in other states you don't, and in other states they're trying to make it illegal for you to leave the state to get an abortion. You got to remember, on the pro-life movement, the anti-abortion movement, their position is that all life is sacred and that abortion is murder, and if that's the case, then they have to prevent all of them from happening. They are kind of hypocritical on the same side, which is if the goal was really to prevent abortion or reduce abortion, the best way to do it is through people not getting pregnant, which is sex ed, contraceptives, family planning, Planned Parenthood, that kind of stuff. That stuff reduces the amount of abortions. Making it illegal doesn't necessarily reduce the amount of abortions. There hasn't been any evidence that it does. What it does is it makes it a lot more unsafe and harmful, and a lot of women are getting sick and dying, and are having severe medical problems, or they have a miscarriage. And abortion is a pretty common treatment for miscarriage, and like 1 in 4 pregnancies result in a miscarriage. And if they don't get the abortion, they don't get that treatment, a lot of times these women can't have children ever again, and it's life-threatening. And they can't get the abortion until it's life-threatening. So it's got to get to the point where it's dangerous before we can even contemplate giving an abortion, when we could have just given them the abortion because it's already a miscarriage. The child's not going to live anyway. Could have just given an abortion, they'd have been fine. But no, we have to wait because of this sort of backwards thinking about it. Now, the other thing that really pisses me off about this whole thing is there's a confusion when they talk about the dates, or when is it life, or when should it be. You're missing the bigger point, which is it's not it's about individual rights here, right? It's about civil rights. So if we're in this was the example they gave in Roe v. Wade. I forget the woman's name, Jarvis, I think was her name. She came up with this. It's a very simple example. Let's say you're kidnapped and you wake up and you're in a hospital and you're physically attached to a violinist, I think was her example. And he's the greatest violinist in the world. And you've got all these tubes attaching you to this person, and they tell you if you detach from this person, they'll die. Otherwise, you have to stay attached to this person for the next 9 months. Now, the question isn't, should she do that? That's really kind of up to the person, you or whoever that's attached to him, right? The question is, should we legally compel you to do it or imprison you if you don't? That's the question that's being asked. And that's the question with abortion. If a woman gets pregnant, right, and she doesn't want to have the child, or it's a miscarriage or something like that, and she gets the abortion, should we have the right as the state, as the government, to imprison that person or to punish that person for doing that? That's the question. It's a question of where does the government intercede on that decision, on that right? And is it a right? And Roe v. Wade, they determined it was a right, and that the government shouldn't have that kind of power to intercede on a medical decision. So I agreed with that. I think that's the only way you can play it. Roe v. Wade did put in some restrictions. I think it was like third trimester, you couldn't get an abortion unless it was medically necessary. But in that case, that's almost always the case. Almost nobody carries a baby for 8 or 9 months and then goes, you know what, I've decided I don't want it now. No, that doesn't. By that point, it's viable. You could take the baby out and it could still live. But that's not the issue. And when they talk about getting an abortion right up to full term, well, an abortion at full term is usually called a birth. Oftentimes they'll do a C-section or something. A C-section is a type of abortion. But the child lives in that case. When we're talking about abortion in the way they're talking about it in the sense that the fetus dies. But if it's viable, right, it's, it can live outside the womb, then the Supreme Court says, or did under Roe v. Wade, then we're talking about, now it's murder. If it's not viable and it's dependent on the mother to survive, then it's her body. She should have a right to say, I do or do not want to carry this thing. I do or do not want to be hooked up to the violinist. And whether you agree with that is right or wrong or moral or good or bad, it's irrelevant. The question is, should we have the right to force somebody to do that? That's the big question. And I think that always gets overlooked. And the main thing that's getting overlooked here is the rights of the mother. Because there are at least 2 people involved in that. Right? The mother and the fetus or the child. If you want to say a fetus is a person, that's fine. I don't care. I don't agree with you, but I don't care because it's irrelevant. It doesn't mean it has automatic rights to the mother's body. That's the whole point. But they keep yodeling back and forth on this. I don't know what else he's going to do. We'll watch a little bit more of this, but I think that's the danger here, is that they're going to take that right away, and we're going to go back to what it was like pre-Roe, where you had, the pro rights movement for abortion, the pro civil rights movement for allowing women to have abortions. Their symbol was a coat hanger, because it used to be that women would stick a coat hanger inside of them to try and scrape it out. That's how dangerous it was back then. And I think that's the problem, is we've moved back to that. And he wants to move it even further back.
Announcement that the
So, I mean, there's the political issue too. Yeah, where they're saying, okay, well, it's gonna affect the election, because it's been a losing issue for the Republicans. They haven't won any of the abortion bills or mandates or anything that's come along. They've been voted down. People want this. They want the right to do it. Most Americans agree that women should have the right to an abortion. At least in most, or in some circumstances, at least. I don't know what to tell you. I hope this is a big issue. I hope everybody gets out and votes, for people to have the right, because it's devastating how it affects people. I mean, it was odd. They recently had I can't remember where it was exactly, but they recently had a testimony that I saw where it was an OBGYN, and she was testifying that they had a girl who'd been, was 11 or 12, who'd been raped and was pregnant. And she's testified it was so horrible that because she was in a state where she was forced to give birth. While she was giving birth, I mean, the girl was so young, she's holding on to her teddy bear and crying while giving birth. I mean, that's the kind of draconian law we're talking about when we talk about anti-abortion. And they were right to point that out, that Trump's sort of trying to skate the middle here. It's still far right, but it's sort of the middle. But on the far right, like I said, these people believe that it's murder to have an abortion. So you can't let anybody ever have that right to have the abortion. You have to take that away. And for Trump to sort of sit there and go, well, leave it up to the states, that's not enough for them. And on the other side of the coin, it's no, we should have the right to do it. Right? We should have the right to do it, and a woman should have the right to choose what to do with her body. Just like anybody else should have a right to choose what to do with their body. So, you know, it is what it is. Honestly, if you want to reduce the number of abortions, it's contraceptives and sex ed and helping people out. That's education is how you do it. And we've proven that. But the anti-abortion people don't want that. They don't want to reduce abortions. They just want to control women. That's what the whole spiel is about. So